Now, the third category of hazards that are found in food, they can be classified as physical hazards, physical safety hazards. Again, they can be classified into different groups. The first and foremost important group of physical hazard is broken glass. Um, as you can see that the industrial operations or within factories, there are many of the structures are made up of glass. For example, light bulbs, glass containers, gauges that might have glass covering on them, so they might break up and get entry into the food system. Similarly, glass is also used as a packaging material. So you can see many food, especially liquid foods or maybe canned food, that are packed in these glass containers. And these glass containers, when they are chipped or they are broken, they might uh, cause these broken glass entry into the food. And once they are present in food, they can cause serious injuries or hazards when such foods are consumed. So that is why we need to take care that the infrastructure within the factories, it should not have many of the glass materials if it's avoidable, and if it's not avoidable, they must have certain coverings, and there must be certain procedures to avoid breakage and then addition of these glass material into the food system. The next class is plastics. Plastic, for the same reason as we discussed in case of glass, they can also get entry into these food products, and they can create certain hazards, for example, choking hazards or oral injuries when they are consumed. They can be in the form of hard plastic or soft plastics, and then depending upon the source of these plastics and the intended use of these plastic, they can be hard or soft. So there may be many of the utensils, or maybe some of the instruments, or some parts of those instruments can be made of these plastics, and from where they can break and get into the food products and cause the physical hazard when it is consumed. The next physical hazard in food is are metal pieces. These metal pieces again can come from all different sources, especially if we talk about the industrial setup within the factories. Maybe there might be different metals that can chip off from the parent material, and they can get into the food product and then cause physical hazard. They can be from other sources such as cleaning tool and equipment and maintenance activities. So we use a lot of material that is made up of metals, of course, and those metals can get into the food and cause food safety hazard. Similarly, in many cases, in many foods, when they are processed, we have to use magnets in order to remove metals, especially in cases where there are more chances of having more metals. For example, in case of wheat, especially in flour mills, um, there are more chances that there will be different metals such as nails or other materials that can get into these wheat grains, and they have to be removed before it is actually crushed. So we use magnets to remove these metals before the food is processed. The next element is wood pieces that can be a physical hazard. Generally, wood comes from different crates or packaging material that are used. So whenever it's possible, we should also not try to use these wood or wood-based structures within industrial setup or within processing premises, just to avoid that these wood pieces can create any physical hazard in the food. Then another physical hazard is the presence of stones in food, and particularly these stones can get from the field into the final products. For example, many beans and peas, they might contain certain stones, and these stones can get into food. On the other hand, these stones can also come from processing plants where we use stone in the form of concrete structures. So from where these stones can get into the food products. This problem is especially serious in case of pulses, as you would see that most of the pulses, they can be added intentionally with the stones to increase the weight as a contaminant as well. This is a very bad practice, but this is very obvious. You might have observed this that stones they do come in these end products, whether due to the field conditions or due to the processing conditions, or they might be added intentionally as a contaminant to increase the weight of these products. But they are serious physical hazard present in these products. Another thing of physical hazard, they can be said as all the personal articles. For example, the personal jewelry that might get into the food product, especially comes from people who are handling the food product. So that is why they are not allowed to use any jewelry or hairpins or necklace or other band-aids, etc. So these personal articles, especially maybe the buttons from your shirt or pens or pencils or hairpins, etc. These are all physical articles that might get into the food and they cause a physical hazard. There can be, now we have discussed these biological, chemical, and physical hazards that can be present in food. Similarly, there are some other things which cannot be classified in that way, and they also are the food safety concerns. For example, I would generally say that mostly there are a lot of debate on genetically modified food crops. So there can be safety concern related to that. Similarly, there can be different concerns towards the irradiated food, whether radiation makes food safe or not. The use of microwaves, there can be a lot of discussion about that. Herbal supplements and other food supplements from the botanical sources. So they are all possibly there can be risk involved of food safety related hazards. So they may be different from physical, chemical, and biological hazards, but they are also the food safety concerns. So now we have covered that different types of physical, biological, and chemical hazards that can be present in food.